Is it me, or is it just seeming like every time you turn around, we're losing somebody else? Every time you turn around, somebody else is going away. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk about that and some other more serious topics in the news. Trucking unions and the ILA strike. Who's really driving this? I mean, we're 2 days into this strike and we're already asking the big question. Who's really driving the future of trucking? That's my question. We have union lovers, and then we have those in the media that push the narrative that unions are running the country. So I'm going to ask, are they? These same media personalities and the same unions are pushing the narrative about a trucker shortage. We're going to cover some of that tonight too. Driving in and around North Carolina, you wouldn't think that there's a trucker shortage. I'll tell you, some of the traffic backups I've seen just trying to get home would throw you for a loop and really put that lie or myth to shame. We're also going to cover some of the post-Helene effects, some things you need to know about if you're trying to navigate around North Carolina in light of the recent events. So, I mean, tonight we got quite a bit packed in. So I urge you, stay tuned because it's about to get real. Broadcasting from inside Trucking City Mobile Studios, currently located a hell of a lot closer to home than I've been in the past. You are with somebody having more fun than any serious news show is allowed to have. Trucker by day, broadcaster by night. Strangely enough, it's getting dark. Boss man here, full-time trucker, given a skill granted by God himself to restore your faith in broadcast talent. It is my pleasure to bring to you another episode of Frontlines, where I single-handedly point out that it's relatively simple and painless to make trucking great again. I urge you to give us a call today on our studio line. Get involved, become part of the movement. You are watching The Truth in Broadcasting, a proud production of the United States of Trucking.
Shall we begin?
YouTube's most unique news show has begun. The fastest growing YouTube channel, Trucking City News.
And I am gonna beat him.
The president telling Justin Trudeau to get tough.
There was no information online.
And the El Rushbo of Trucking News, Boss Man. Call our studio, 860-785-3547, 860-785-3547, or email us at thatstruckingnews@outlook.com. We are here yet again, bringing you more news on the trucking industry that makes you better. We are making trucking great again, one episode at a time. Just like my logo says, one load, one code. Greetings, truck lovers and truth seekers. We are back behind the golden TIB microphone. We are running a talk show that is designed for you in the audience to get involved, say your piece, and be heard. A lot of your mainstream media, they don't do it right. They don't care about you. They don't put it out the way it is. This show does. We cut through the media narrative. We cut through the union garbage. We cut through what the big corporate elites want you to see And we open a platform so that you can state your mind about what it is you actually do see. 860-785-3547 is our phone number. If you want, give us a call. We're going to cover 3 good stories tonight. We're going to get the opinions of not only you in the audience, but a welcome panel of people that are out here doing it just like you and me. Well over 150 years worth of experience in this panel. A bunch of people that really know the ropes and take pride in the job they do. A couple of these guys I'm going to bring right up immediately. Poet,
Hello.
I understand you busy last few days
Yep.
getting yourself reorganized.
Yep.
Are you feeling better now for it?
No, I'm going to be sleeping for the next 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. Well, my friend, moving is never fun. So my hat's off to you. You know, that now that you've got it done. So hey, you're that much better for it. Larry, what about yourself? How's things hanging in the Larry the trucker realm?
Not bad.
Not bad
Could
at
be
all.
worse. We could be sitting.
Very true. Very
Oh, wait a
true.
minute. We are sitting.
I was going to say you spent part of your week doing that too. So yeah, know the feeling indeed.
But good news is my truck got fixed, and they're just waiting to route me back towards Sparks to pick it back up.
Right, there you go. There you go. Well, hopefully that happens, and we're not too waylaid or delayed from that. So let's all hope that works out for the better.
That is true.
Tell you, one of the things I saw this week that really kind of hit me by surprise, as if losing Dave last week wasn't enough. We're dealing with yet another profound loss in the trucking industry. At the age of 88, one legendary Chris Christopherson passed away. My understanding is it was at his home in Hawaii. In case you guys aren't aware, Chris Christopherson is the one name and face that really sticks out when it comes to the trucking industry. I think he's probably best known for his role in the following movie.
Hearing from many of those drivers really traveling along.
Yep. And like usual, technical difficulties. Hang on one second. I have one video clip ready to go. There it is.
Hey, Doug, I swear we got a goddamn convoy. Look at us, you crazy thing.
That's incredible. Where are they all coming from?
Everywhere.
I can't believe it. Why?
Don't ask me, ask them. I'm running for my life myself.
Yeah, but they're all following you.
No, they ain't. I'm just in front.
Now, I'm going to hold that right off a second because I want to read something. It was posted in the State House file on the death of both a country music legend and our famous Martin Penwald, a.k.a. the Rubber Duck. A film back in the 1970s, I think, a.k.a. I want to say 78, I think is when it was released. This guy penned a pretty good piece talking about Chris Christopherson after he passed. Said Chris Christopherson died the other day. He was 88. Normally, I'd say he leaves this world a lonelier place. But I learned from listening to him that loneliness is something that we have to learn to live with, a condition of being human. And that happiness and satisfaction in life comes not from denying our ghosts, but confronting them and making peace with them. Chris Christopherson may be gone, but the legend, well, that lives on. Lives on every day.
A lonely breed. Hard men. Proud men. Not too proud to cry, nor shed a tear.
the living embodiment of the American cowboy tradition. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here today to honor this great Native American son who gave his life to dramatize a cause so vital to us all.
There you go. I hear that. I thought that was a fitting way to pay tribute to him. What do you guys think, John? Did you watch much of that movie? Were you very familiar with it? What do you think of the passing of Chris Christopherson?
I've seen it a few times. He's definitely, a trucking icon from that time, and that movie's a classic when it comes to trucking for sure. So
It is.
You bet.
Yep.
You bet.
Yep. Grumpy, what do you know about that man? I mean, I'll bet you're quite the movie goer yourself. Were you aware of the fact that he not only had a lot of movie credits, but he was also quite the musician?
I am. And actually just seeing what you showed, the Grump actually brought tears to me because I've been a fan of his for years.
Yeah. Just it's troubling because I mean we've been losing them left, right, and sideways. I mean, I want, just so everybody in the audience knows, I want this first section of my opening show to be either my opening thoughts or something on inspiration. And here the last 2 weeks I've been putting up nothing but depressing stuff. You people in the trucking industry need to stop dying, okay? No more death. No more. Done. Anyway.
They don't die, they up shit, like John said last week.
There you go. Good point. I like that. That's a good one. Anyway, we're talking with.
We just found our new place. We just found our new place to park.
Huh? And what does that mean?
Basically, Poet's saying it's unlimited parking. We don't have to worry about fighting for spaces once we go. That's what he's saying.
Exactly.
Good point. Yeah, good point. Didn't think about it that way. Our mountains and towns are devastating to see. Talking about North Carolina, I'm sure. Yeah, Seven Seas is talking about North Carolina. Thank you for that information. Any information you've got, Seven Seas, definitely pass along to me. I'm going to be in the Carolinas for the next couple of weeks, so I want to make sure people coming through on each of these shows and other subsequent videos, I'm going to drop updates as regular as I can because I want to keep everybody up to date. So if you know something, Seven Seas, don't hesitate. Send it to my email address. That's trucking news.
I know I-40 is supposed to be closed until
25.
March of 2025.
Yep.
I will say he is one busy man right there. He was down in Louisiana helping down there when they got hit just a couple weeks ago, and now he's up in NC helping out. Dude's awesome.
Truckers for Build Back Better. Feild, are you trying to start something, my friend? I like that. That's funny.
We don't have to. It's already there.
I know. I like ripping on him. You know what I mean? That's
fine. Rip on
RIP from Thumper. There you go. Yep. So I'm going to move on to something a little bit more challenging, so to speak. So let's move topics and let's move topics and get on to some more, how do we say, uplifting. Trucker shortage narrative. Boy, they ain't going to let that one die, no matter what they do. Trucker shortage narrative is technical difficulties. Stop it. Computer better be nice to me. According to Supply Chain Digest, the American Trucking Association warns of a massive driver shortage. In some cases, predicting over 160,000 missing drivers by 2030. Let me tell you guys, this is a narrative being pushed for the benefit of big carriers and organizations holding all the power in today's economy. They want you to believe the shortage is on us, but we really have a retention problem driven by bad working conditions. It's not a lack of willing drivers. Walmart's a good example. You know, back in July, this article from Supply Chain Digest suggested Walmart's offering currently $110,000 annually for drivers because they know the talent's out there. Millions of drivers are still working every day. The problem? Bad pay, unpaid wait time, and burnout. Yet the media and these big corporations keep selling you this shortage BS to justify status quo and to help people like we're about to talk about win arguments. Who wins from this? The big carriers and the unions. Certainly not us. And let's not forget about these unions we're talking about, licking their chops to use this narrative to fuel their push for control over working conditions. They want you to believe the only answer is more regulations. But is that really what truckers need? Midlife? Or is it time the industry stepped up and treated drivers with respect and fairness? You know, we're going nuts and haywire on the East Coast and Gulf port shutdowns. Okay? And I'm going to go on a tangent here on this next segment. It's probably going to make you think I'm crazy, but think about it. You know, we often, and there are those in the media, or not in media, there are those in the industry, you and me, that tend to side with, well, we need to stop. We need to strike. We need to protest. Well, watch carefully about ILA, see what happens, because I'm going to tell you something. We're going to learn some lessons from them. Really, this whole shortage narrative is about big corporations, corporate greed, media spin, and the unions using this narrative for their own agenda. There's no shortage. There is a shortage of good treatment, and there is a shortage of good jobs. But there's not a shortage of us willing to do the work. So let's bring this up, have some chatter about it. I want to hear from you in the audience. Tell me what you think. Do you believe this garbage and this nonsense? Or is this just another day in the media or in the industry, as it were? And do you think it's just something we'll hear today, gone tomorrow? What do you guys think? John, you first. What's the whole thing? I mean, I'm of the opinion driver retention is probably our biggest issue. And if you're talking about globally over companies, there's a lot of room for improvement there.
I think
the reasons they say.
I think we beat the shortage into a death. But let me preface that. I think if you sit at a truck stop and you look around, I would say 60% or more are older truck drivers. So yes, in 5 to 10 years, there will be a shortage. Okay, if you don't believe that, you're not paying attention. Right now, heck no.
No, there's none. I mean, none whatsoever. But yet, this article I just referenced from Supply Chain Digest suggests there is. And they're right along the side of the media. And they're making it sound like, yeah, what they're saying is legit. And it's just, and it's only 2 months old. The article's back from July. It's not that old at all.
It's retention.
I mean, say again, Poet?
It's retention.
Exactly. You know, I mean, if you look at, I mean, he's not on the panel right now because he's busy. If you look at Feild has his business model set up. He doesn't have any problems. And I'm sure he's of the camp that there isn't really a driver shortage. And I could speak for pretty much everybody here on the panel. If there was really a driver issue or an issue keeping work going, most of us wouldn't even be on this panel. We'd be looking for a job, and we would be, we'd be looking to do things a lot differently than we are. But every time you turn around, the media's got some garbage to feed to us about a shortage that doesn't exist. And like I said earlier, I do have a reason for bringing this up.
I will tell you.
We're going to cover a little bit.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're going to cover a little bit about this in the story coming up. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I wouldn't say a driver shortage. I would say a shortage in standards, because our standards are way too low nowadays, and a shortage in training. That's where our shortage is.
That's pretty fair. Yeah, pretty fair grounds to go on. You know, but I mean, more to your point, the media keeps saying there aren't enough drivers. We got millions of drivers. Just on my way here to shut down for the show, in fact, I was traveling north on 77. And, you know, all detours aside, I mean, the backup just trying to get through Charlotte was staggering. I mean, and it wasn't all cars. It was all trucks. It was ridiculous. 7 miles long. I counted it. 7 miles. All trucks. You know, I mean, yes, some of it probably is due to the fact that, you know, the 40s have washed out and you can't get on 40. But I mean, even on a good day, you know, there's usually a backup.
That's Charlotte.
Well,
Charlotte's a mess. It always is.
But never that long. That's my thing. Usually there's a backup, but never that long. I mean, that's crazy.
Try leaving Charlotte on 85 going down towards Georgia. Yeah, I've sat there for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Right? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, we all have. You know, same thing can be said for Atlanta any given day, Chicago on any given day.
Yeah, but Charlotte's much smaller than Chicago or Atlanta. You would never imagine it there, but their traffic is ridiculous.
Well, I'm sure a majority of the reason the shortage or the backup was so bad today was probably because of 40. But still, I mean, I'm not focused so much on the backup. I'm focused on the numbers. You know, the media pounds out that we have not enough drivers. But you see all these trucks and you hear all this garbage about we can't find parking. And we got all these other stories about not being able to get this done, not being able to get that done. How is it one can be true, but the other can't?
So if you look down in your guest box down there, I think the show's about to go off.
Why?
Good. Let's have it.
Oh, he jumped out. Midlife was there a second ago.
If you go back,
there he is. There he is.
Let me bring him on. How you doing, my friend? Welcome into the show late. Glad you're here.
He got his ears lowered.
I gotta tell you, you're full of shit.
Wait. More importantly, you got your ears lowered.
Yeah, it looks like he's back in the military.
You just told us that there's no driver shortage. Then you gave us the reason for the driver shortage. If there's no driver shortage, then there's no retention problem. If there's no driver shortage, there's no respect problem, no reason that people leave in the industry. The only way you can't have those other problems. You're giving the reason for the driver shortage.
Are we jumbling two different issues?
No, you are giving the reasons for the driver shortage. You say there's a retention problem. You're right, there is. That's
the reason I started. The reason I started off with was not the retention. Poet mentioned that, and John backed that up. The reason I mentioned, if you recall and look back, is pay.
Okay, pay is not a problem. There's
bring your decimals down. Hey, passionate guy, bring your decimals down.
See,
go ahead.
Midlife can say that because of the company he works for.
If there's no driver shortage, pay is not a problem.
Bullshit.
Why do you feel that way? If
there's no driver shortage, pay isn't a problem because they're able to attract enough drivers to the industry. You keep giving reasons for the problem and then tell us that there is no driver shortage.
There are plenty of drivers. Hey, let me say something. In the comments down below, I agree with Dorothy. There are plenty of drivers. The problem is we don't need to have qualified and experienced drivers. There are plenty of drivers that can sit behind a wheel, but they're not qualified and experienced.
Exactly. So there's a shortage, but there isn't a shortage. There's a shortage of experienced drivers, but there's enough drivers out there to keep everybody busy.
Why is it midlife? Let me ask you this: why is it on the same networks? Literally, you'll see them talk about there is a shortage, but then also turn around on a separate segment and talk about the overcapacity.
Clickbait.
Because people in business are not short-sighted and don't think like truck drivers where they only look at today or look at tomorrow or look at yesterday.
I said
5 years, 10 years. They have to look at the fact that 2/3 of the drivers out here will not be driving in 5 years. A third of them will be retired on,
and John already pointed that out, by the way,
as they go to another industry.
Yeah.
Wait for Boss Man to say his piece.
Well, I've already said it. I'm posing.
I'll be driving in 5 years.
I'm posing the arguments back to him. I mean, because in the end, I may be wrong, I may be right, but the whole platform is here for every single one of you guys. Now, I am of the opinion. I am of the opinion. Wait a second, poet. I am of the opinion that we have a serious overcapacity in the trucking industry right now. There is no shortage. We need to get rid of the capacity, and then things will straighten out. So, yes, I am of the opinion there is no shortage. As to what solves that problem, I've listed my piece.
Okay.
What,
May
now,
I? May I?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Up here in Canada, we have supposedly students, university students, and they get into the trucking business through their temples.
Right.
Now, hang on, let me finish.
Go ahead.
The thing
Go ahead.
is, as these guys, okay, they run up and down Highway 11, which we call the Taliban Highway, and they won't even touch Highway 17, which runs right along the North Shore Superior, okay?
Right.
And the amount of accidents on Highway 11 really, I can't pull it up right now, but the amount of closures and everything else, you're looking at probably 8 to 10 hours every single day. Now,
wow. Unqualified drivers, is that what you think the reason for that?
Well, let me ask you, if you were only qualified to drive a camel cart in the country you came from, but now you're a Class 1A CDL driver, what are we doing here?
Okay. All right. I'd like to butt my opinion in, please.
Go ahead, Grumpy.
Go ahead, man.
All right. I partly agree with what Poet's coming from, but I see the factor that it's a world out here. I mean, we are America. Everybody comes over here for, more money, better living, everything else. Okay. Even though we as Americans see it as like, golly, why would anybody want to be here? All right. With all this trucking companies that are, I call them fly by nights. Okay. We are getting way too many of them, and they're just popping up everywhere. And then they're not following legalities like they should. They're trying to fidget the logbook system. They're trying to do anything they can. They're not teaching the people that jump in their trucks long enough to know what's going on, how to operate it, how to get out there and be safe with it. It's just like giving a teenager, before they even go through driving school of any kind, the keys and saying, here you go, but now go out and play on the freeway. And that's kind of the way I'm seeing it. So yeah, that's the biggest issue I think we're having.
I like the way the commenter below, Poet, hold on a minute. Poet, hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. TC Boggs puts down in the comments, definitely no driver shortage. Wages are stagnant. Too many third worlders driving their feet on the dashboard. That's interesting. I've never thought of putting it that way, third worlders. I'm going to steal that with your permission. Go ahead, Poet.
Okay.
That's not a good idea.
I really need you to check into the Humboldt crash. HUMBOLD. Okay, Saskatchewan crash.
Okay, I think I've read some of it.
Yep.
16 minor hockey players got killed by a university. Okay, that got less than 1 week of training from his temple and the owner of the truck. Okay.
Okay. And there again, what I'm trying to say, what I'm
hang on. Okay. 16 people get killed and a bunch more injured.
all right.
When are we going to put a stop to this?
I'm going to tell you right now, it's never going to stop, because as long as this right here flows into our government and they follow pretty much the best line they can, if not, and they get out of line, they're going to fine them. So there comes some more of this right there until a bad accident happens, and then lawsuits happen. Now, that accident that you're talking about, I understand it was a foreigner, but let me tell you, that accident could have been me. That accident could have been you, Poet. It could happen to anybody. They just, I agree they need to have more experience. I agree they do need to have more training on that. But I'm telling you, it could have been Boss Man up there. It could have been anybody. I mean, accidents are going to happen.
I understand that Poet is very passionate about spreading the word on that story, and I believe everything you said, Poet. I've read what you sent me on that, and I do think that was a tragic situation. But moreover, I do think that, the more requirements you put on training, the harder you do make trying to get fresh blood in the industry. Now, that's a double-edged sword, because, on one side, we're sitting here refuting the argument that there's a shortage, because I honestly think there's an overcapacity and there's way too much in here. The market needs time to equalize, and we don't need a bunch of untrained people, more to your credit, in here occupying space and making an industry worse than it really already is. On the same token, though, if we don't up certain training standards and certain requirements, we're going to do it to ourselves. So you got to be real careful when it comes to that argument. So that's where I draw that argument. I'm going to take a moment. I want to recognize a couple of new faces.
So let me tell you this. The government of Saskatchewan, after that crash, put in a strict training process for newbie drivers.
Yep.
6 months ago, they started pulling back on that.
Yep.
Oh, we need more drivers.
Matter of convenience.
Where in the hell does that come from? And yes, I'm up in Canada. I'm the only one on the panel that's up here. But guess what?
Yep.
Want something?
I'm gonna give.
Don't back it off. Go ahead, son.
Yeah, I'm gonna give some notoriety to some new faces in the audience. PJ. I'm just gonna say PJV. Okay, how's everyone doing? I'm lousy with names, people, so I'm gonna butcher them. I'll let you know in advance. Delta Forces, y'all being replaced by AI robots. Y'all, welcome to the channel. Yeah, someday it's gonna happen, but I'm not really too worried about it at the moment. Got an opinion coming in from TC. There's a constant churn, to be sure. However, it's always been the case. If you're truly a driver shortage, wages and freights would be up due to lower supply of available trucks. Good point.
You bet.
And Delta Forces says, Machines are faster, smarter, more accurate, don't need sleep or food, don't have to pay them, more 24/7, don't go on strike. You know, I think automation, I've said this before. I'll get to you in a minute, Thumper. I've said automation has its place. There is no problem with automation. And in fact, we're going to talk about a story here in a minute where a lot's going to be talked about on that. If somebody knows how to use automation, I'll give them credit. The ports do. More on that in a minute, though. Automation's fine, but if you take over to the point where you let it rule the day, there's a danger involved. So I have a serious skepticism with a truly autonomous, no human involved type situation with trucks. But that's a whole nother video and a whole nother topic. Goes on to say humans no longer needed, humans obsolete, will become automated. I'm wondering if Delta 42 or Delta 82 is a bot.
No,
dude, do me a favor. No, he's not. I'm just picking on him. Do me a favor. Drop the cap.
I think he's automated.
No, I'm just picking on him. He's fine. He makes a good point, though. I mean, it's coming down to that. The more reliance we get on automation, the less of us they'll be needed. I mean, the more we'll have to compete to actually stand out. But that keeps us going. So more to our credit. Simple supply and demand, less drivers, availability to haul freight, tightened availability to increase prices. That's not what we're experiencing. Good point. Got anything to add to that one, Midlife?
Yeah, it's real simple. If you can pick up the phone and call another carrier and get a job tomorrow, that means that company has a shortage of drivers. If they have loads to move and open trucks, then they have a driver shortage. It's that simple.
But each company's different. But each company's different.
Okay.
So hang on. So by your standards, if you can get a job, that must be a shortage.
That company has a shortage of drivers, or
but every company's different.
They wouldn't be hiring.
Right.
If they've got open trucks and loads to move, they have a shortage of drivers. And they don't
if I go
today, they think 5 years out, 10 years out. How many of these drivers you have? If you have 300 trucks, how many of your drivers are still going to be driving for you in 5 years? A bunch of them are going to stop driving because of age. I mean, look at this panel. Look how old we are. How many of us?
You're the only old one here.
Hey, chill out.
Yeah, chill out.
We might be younger, but me, Grumpy, and Poet all have more experience than you guys.
Oh, he's pulling rank.
People will still be driving.
How about Bumper?
Some of the younger drivers are going to leave the industry because they can't handle living on the road. They're going to change their family situation. They're going to have children. They're going to want a daytime job where they're home.
It's always been that way.
Right. That is why there's always been a shortage.
At the same time, Tom, you speak of what happens between carriers. Industry-wide, though, I don't think the entire industry has that problem. We still can find jobs. We still can move places.
You don't think there's any problem, so they cut off all hiring, they stop all schools, produce no more truck drivers. 5 to 10 years from now, what happens? Who's moving the cargo? Because 5 to 10 years from now, 2/3 of the current drivers are going to be gone.
Robots.
I know. All us old folks will have to come out of retirement and drive again. Imagine that.
Tom.
Thumper, you want to add to this? Because I kind of overlooked that a minute ago.
Well, you said you were gonna do a story here about automated, so I'll wait on that one. I got a really good opinion. That automated stuff's gonna get me fired up, so it's gonna be a good one.
The next conversation is gonna be a good one. I'm fired up already.
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
What the hell is a school?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you mentioned schools. What the hell is a school?
They don't have schools in Canada?
In the United States,
Poet comes from the old school. Get your butt behind that wheel. There's a shifter. You screw up, smack.
No, that's how I was.
Here's a key. Good luck.
Sick.
Hadn't been that way in quite a while, Poet.
I want to know what Tom is talking about when he talks about trucking schools. Because
It's a requirement
in my
in the United
past
States.
life, no, bullshit. We never
It
had
is.
those started.
The FMCSA has made it a requirement in order for you to hold a CDL in the United States. You have to satisfactorily certify that you've passed all ELDT standards. That is a rule.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's fine. The thing is
Yeah.
that schools don't teach you shit. Nothing.
Well,
No, they teach you how to pass a test. That's all they teach you.
Schools are to teach you to pass the CDL. Your first
yeah.
carrier is where you get your training,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
where you actually learn the craft and the job.
Yeah.
And that's where the deficiency is in our industry.
They pass it for you.
Yeah. Last thing, Poet, and then we're moving on.
Tom, when did you start?
October of 2019, I went to Millis School. Millis transfer.
I started in 1970, and I got taught with a yardstick.
Okay, but the difference is we don't do that anymore because you don't want that driver who came over here from India teaching his buddy who just came over from India last week how to drive. So we as Boss Man always says, he wants regulation. He got regulations put in place that mandates you go to school for a certain amount of training now.
Trust me.
For what it's worth,
a new driver, if I were to teach a new driver, he would get taught with a yardstick method the same way I was taught.
This one topic's almost taken an hour.
I know, right? For what it's worth, I'm going to tell you something. I think personally, this whole argument about shortage is a death knell by itself, but I don't mind bringing it up. And if you want to know more about Tom's experience, Poet, see him after the show. In the meantime, we're going to get on to something bigger and better, and we're going to really stir things up. Shortage may be one thing, but I'll tell you something. When it comes down to it, unions got this country by the gonads. We're going to talk about the ILA strike and the media reports. The looming strike by the International Longshoremen's Association, I think it's probably going to be around for a little bit. It's already been 2 days, and we're already hearing a bunch of different opinions about it. I'm going to put my 2 cents in. What's driving this? Take this kind of action. What are these guys fighting for? And how does this tie into trucking and the lifeline of our economy? On the surface, we got demands for wage increases, retirement benefits, and fierce opposition to automation creeping into their work. Let's dig a little deeper and let's see that it's about much more than just money. It's really about technology, bypassing union jobs. It's about a fight for relevance and the very survival of the traditional port worker in a world that's quickly moving toward automation. You might kind of say we're in the same boat. ILA claims that certain terminal operators are using gate technology, process trucks autonomously, cutting out union labor. These employees argue that the tech has been in place since 2008, well before their last contract. So the question remains, are they drawing a line in the sand to protect the future of their members, or are they holding up the process or the progress in the name of preserving their jobs that they fear could become obsolete? There's a lot at stake here. It's not just for the dock workers, but for all of us who depend on the steady flow of goods to keep our wheels turning. As truckers, we say some of us, we stand firm and on the same side as the ILA, all right? But others argue this strike's unproductive and it's a hindrance. And some of us just don't even want to know about it. But tonight, we're going to dissect this. I want to know in the audience what you think. Do you think the ILA strike is justified? Or do you think they're looking at holding up trucking and the rest of the economy for a fight they can't win? See, this isn't just about the ports. This is about the future of labor entirely, I think, including ours. I mean, so let's get into it. Let's get you guys involved. 860-785-3547. Let's have an honest conversation. Who's really driving this fight? And who's really in control? Tell me in the comments, do you think the unions are what's controlling trucking? Or is there something else we don't know about? Let's dig deep into this and let's analyze it. Let's get the obvious out of the way. You obviously, midlife, have a lot of passionate opinions when it comes to unions.
Hey,
so what's your thought?
I loved unions. When I was in management, I loved dealing with unions because when some guy come to me and said, a pressman comes and says, hey, I need a raise, I'd say, go to page 7B of your contract, look at that chart. When you get to that number of years, you'll get a raise. Until then, sorry, paid it for you. That's the contract. And boy, did they hate that. Now, let me tell you something about unions. Unions are great for weak employees. They're okay for mediocre employees, but they hold strong employees back. Most of us on this panel have done very well in trucking. We've excelled. We've moved to the top. We couldn't do that in a union environment because in a union environment, you have to bid for your route. You go into there and you're the low man on the totem pole when you go to UPS, and you may get to be a floater. You may get to cover stuff, but all the people with seniority bid on the great routes and get all the big money. You eventually get there, but you don't start there. And what's going on right now is totally bad optics. Harold Daggett is an idiot. He's an idiot. And
Harold Daggett is
hurting his industry more than he's helping it. When he goes on television and says, we're going to cripple you, we are going to make the car dealers, the car salesmen, he's not hurting the millionaires. Millionaires couldn't tell you how much bananas cost because they don't buy them. Their maid goes and buys them. Now, when it comes to a truck driver, it's going to hurt truck drivers because it's going to screw up our industry and waiting for this stuff to come in. Now, what eventually is going to happen is they'll start moving this shit through Mexico. Mexico's got ports, and hey, Julio down there, he's ready to work.
Well, but that's going to take
the West Coast.
Yeah, they got the West Coast too, so it's going to take some time.
The West Coast, the ILWA has already said they will not take any ships that were supposed to go to ILA ports. There are 14 ILA ports. There's 16 ports total on the East Coast down to Texas from Houston to Portland. And 14 of those ports are union, 2 are not. 2 that are not, one of which, Portland, has already said they will not take any ILA ships. So that's where your problem comes in. But he's already said, we're going to make everybody understand who the longshoremen are. And all the people that are being hurt aren't rich people. The people that are being hurt are going to be us when we go to buy groceries. They're going to be us when we go to and then the last thing, and before I let you all jump all over it, the last really good thing on here is he could have kicked the football down the road. He could have said, look, because of this natural disaster just happened a few weeks ago, we're going to work for the next month trying to figure out a contract. And we're going to go ahead and work until we're through the disaster, but be aware this strike is coming. Instead,
you're well aware,
the freak out at midnight.
As you're well aware, I said in a previous video, or at least a couple of days ago, it would have made better sense to wait until after the election. Go ahead, John.
All right. Well, I did something for this live that I've never done before. And I'm going to actually show you guys why I did it. So I normally go on these lives and I'm very opinionated and I just kind of shoot from the hip. I actually looked up articles and reading articles about this, and I have an article up right in front of me right now from Routers, right? and it says, yeah, routers, whatever, routers, who cares? But it says President Joe Biden's administration has put pressure on port employers to raise their offer to secure the deal with the dock workers, but they haven't sat down at a table, and there's no time scheduled to sit down. Now let's hang on one second. Hang on. You know, the dock workers are asking for a $5 increase every year for 6 years. That's 45,000 employees, $5 each per hour every year, going up $5 more for 6 years. Wait, it gets worse. Biden has said he will not intervene and stop the strike. He will encourage them to settle it at the table. This is the worst possible news. $5.
No, they're asking for
$5 per hour. $5 per hour per employee with a $5 increase every year for 6 years.
That's not what they're asking for. They're asking for
that's what. Whatever semantics. Hang on.
Yeah.
The crazy part is he's not going to intervene. This is the worst possible thing that could ever happen to our country, and he's not going to intervene.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to have to save us, and it won't be common.
I was going to say he will only intervene when he gets enough pressure from bigger companies that are affected by this, and that's going to take probably, I don't know. Well, let's put this into perspective, shall we? Okay, because I did some research of my own. Okay, and I pulled up an article the other day, and I'm ashamed I didn't put it in my script. Okay, but I pulled up an article the other day that gave us an interesting perspective on the history behind strikes, and I'm going to go off memory, okay? But back in 1938, a strike similar to what we're experiencing now went on then. Now, what happened was back then, this started as, I think, something to do with the ILA and Maritime Association in the 30s, talking about they wanted more money. It was all over wages, just like it is. And back then there was a hurricane that had come through just like this, and they took advantage and said, we want better work conditions, we want more money. And it originally started out 1938 with 4,000 workers. And the entire strike took a period. It started on September 15th, and they came to negotiate on October 2nd, 1938. Mere days before the World's Fair. And it was said the World's Fair was hindered because of the effect of the work stoppage. A grand total of 40,000 people, by the time all was said and done, stepped in, took their side, assisted them, supported them, did everything needed. They started with 4,000. That's interesting. So I think there's something out there in this article I had, and if it's linked, it'll be in below the description. But I think it's interesting. You know, one number and then the number expands and the support grows, which is what the ILA is counting on today, because that's what they're basing everything on now. They had support back then. They think they're going to have it now. Thumper, what do you say? You said you had a lot to say about automation, but this is really the crux of the argument is automation. It wasn't long ago we were in a spot where they were holding up contract negotiations because of automation. And now it's because of pay. What you think?
Well, I'm going to start off on a couple other things here first. I didn't get my opinion about Chris Christopherson here because I kind of moved on real quick. And I think you guys kind of heard the train horns. I grew up watching that movie. I grew up watching Smokey and the Bandit. I grew up watching BJ and the Bear. BJ and the Bear. I grew up on those trucking movies, and to see him pass on, it really sucks. I was in complete shock when I found out about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is Poet, why are you always eating during a live?
Distraction therapy. There you go.
Because
if it's not Poet, Yeah.
The live happens when Pig is cooking supper.
There you go.
Okay, I just had to give you a hard time. It's just funny. It seems like every time I look, you're eating something.
You got to bring some for everybody, or you can't do it.
There you go. There you go.
Shepherds, come and get it.
There you go. All right,
Good
so
job,
now here's where I'm going to get worked up. Automotion or automation, whatever you want to call it. My line of work, the hopper bottom, yes, I can see it. But the cattle, you show me a robot that can close gates in a cattle pot, go into the feed yard or the sale barn, and get the correct cattle and open up gates, push them into the trailer and everything else. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's no denying. There are certain jobs automation cannot replace.
No.
There's just no way.
And then tell me this, okay, you got these autonomous trucks. All fine and dandy, but they can't account for weather change. Like if the wind picks up in a matter of a split second. I mean, yes, we're not perfect. We have issues too. But we could also, like us on the panel, we've been driving long enough, we can account for it. We're always ready for it. A snowstorm, blizzard, they're driving. What's gonna tell them to shut down? If a guy's sitting there sleeping at a computer, oh, the weather's bad, push a button. Well, if he doesn't catch it and that truck goes into bad weather and causes an accident, kills thousands of people. I mean, I'm just throwing a number out there. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Thumper.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thumper. That would be an automated steering wheel holder.
That's a good way of looking at it.
We're not going to go down that road right up.
You're right.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Want to notice the comment underneath me. Hearing soon, if I'm reading that right. Kamala's going to use as a PR stunt and save the day with the last minute woman power. I don't know. What do you guys think? You think this could be a political spin to favor one party or the other? What do you think?
No. What's Kamala going to do about it?
Absolutely.
Well,
either that.
It's not
either that.
spin, because if it was political spin, trust me, the unions almost always side with the Democrats. Well, this particular union thing could kill the Democrats in 38 days.
Well, I was going to say, Biden's already said he's going to stay out of it, so that kind of puts her in a bind.
He's been out of it since day one.
That's
right. I mean, the freaking guy can't remember his name. I mean, it's just
he can't walk upstairs without stumbling.
Yeah, he
over
can't walk upstairs. And if Kamala gets in, you might as well park your truck because the Civil War is going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
wow.
It's just that's my opinion. I mean, the time is coming where we're due for a Civil War. Honestly.
Well,
before we get into that conversation, I'm just saying. I just sent something to Midlife to show him what I was talking about. The 77% breaks down to $5 per hour per person over 45,000. Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. No,
I just sent it to you.
I know. I read it. You read one line and you believed it. You bought it hook, line, and sinker. They got you. This is
I read the entire article.
Okay, no, you didn't.
Stop screaming at me, by the way.
Here's the deal. That
okay,
$5
you too.
For the lowest paid person who's only paid $39 an hour. It comes out 77% will be $5 per year for them. The raise he is seeking, look up.
Yeah, but still, that's $30.
For that lowest paid person, it's $30.
For the lowest paid, that should blow your mind. You don't need to know about the crane operator that's going to make $500,000. If $30 an hour raise over 6 years isn't enough to blow your mind and make you realize these guys are asking for too much, then I don't know what tax bracket you live in.
77% is what they're asking for.
I know.
And so you take somebody already making $250,000, $300,000 a year, they're going to make $500,000 a year by the
end of 6 years. Yeah,
I think that was the great point he started making.
$5 tries to make it look like Reuters tried to make it look like, oh, they're only asking for $5 more a year, just $5 more.
No, $5 more per hour per employee every year, going up $5 more. What do you mean? What do you mean that's not that much? Am I going to get that raise?
Of course not. Of course not. You're not a longshoreman. You can't cripple. Daggett said it. I'm going to cripple.
You know, I don't care what way you slice it. There is an immediate outlet out there. There is an immediate outlet out there that doesn't put some sort of spin on it. Now, he picked up rooters. I picked
Reuters.
up whatever. I call it rooters.
Roto-rooters.
Whatever. But it doesn't matter. You even told me a while ago, Tom, that Freight Waves does it to a degree too. So, you know, I read now more carefully a lot of things because of what you told me. And there's truth to it. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about rooters, Reuters, whatever it is, or Freight Waves or ABC or any of them. They're all going to put a spin because they've got an angle. Every damn one of them does.
I have a question, boss man. And if you don't mind, I want you to pass it around. I'm curious what everybody has to say, and I won't interfere. None of us should interfere with each other's answer. How does this affect trucking?
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Grumpy. Go ahead, Grumpy.
This will affect us truckers due to the factor that a lot, not all, but a lot of the freight that we move around here in the United States comes out of the ports because they're shipped on containers. The containers are taken to warehouses, and then people like you and I go to these warehouses, pick up the stuff from there, and distribute it out. That's how it's going to affect us. It may not affect us right away, but it is going to affect us. Trust me.
It's not going to affect us chicken haulers.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Well,
wait your turn. Wait your turn. I want to hear what everybody has to say because I'm surprised the wide spectrum of what I've heard from truckers, and I'm just curious what y'all think.
Yep. What about you, Thumper? What do you think?
Well, it's definitely going to affect us. It's a chain reaction. You raise the rates over there, and who's going to pay for that? Midlife answered that already. The consumer, well, if they go up, fuel's going to go up. You know, everything's going to go up. And I mean, if you go back and look at like way back in the day, $1 was a lot of money. Today, $1,000 is hardly anything, it seems like, because of the inflation and everything else. So it's just going to be a chain reaction. Well, if fuel goes up, we won't be able to drive. You know, and that goes back to the whole thing, insurance, that whole insurance thing, that's going to go up. I mean, there's so many factors to it that, yes, the consumer's going to pay for it, but it's a chain reaction. If the unions go up, then us truckers are going to get affected, and then we're going to bitch and kind of be like, well, I can't afford to haul, which there's going to be less trucks on the road, then the prices and everything are going to go up.
Current comments, the perfect description of it. So lumber rates will be hugely inflated due to the hurricane devastation and the ports being closed. I mean, just what you're saying right there, you know, is what TC Boggs is saying. I mean, in terms of timing, this couldn't be more well timed at all. I mean, for them to get their argument heard, that is, whether they win it or not, that remains to be seen. Larry, what do you think?
Well, I pull reefers, so I haul reefers, so.
Well, yeah, but it's going to affect you in some way. To answer John's question, how do you think it's going to affect it?
I mean, I haul out of the West Coast, so it's really not going to affect me until I go to the East Coast.
Oh, it'll affect you, and it'll affect you. You just probably won't notice it that much right away. Poet, you got an opinion?
I do. The ILA probably picked the worst time, especially with Hurricane Helene, to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And if they had any kind of humane or human factions at all in their head, they would have backed off, because it's going to affect every single North American, not just Americans, Canadians.
Not just truckers. Yeah.
Not every North American on this continent.
Well, I'm saying it's broader than just trucking. I mean, because this discussion and this channel talks about trucking, but I think it's going to go far beyond trucking. All right.
Yeah.
Now, to get to me, Tom, did you have something to add to that, or want to answer John's question?
I want to
Spell the
answer it when
question.
everybody's done.
State the question so I can answer exactly and not obfuscate.
How does this affect trucking? The strike.
It's going to affect trucking is going to be affected several ways, but you got to look at the entire picture. Initially, the East Coast port trucking, the containers, the boxes you see, the cans as they call them, there's going to be some shutdown there. Here's a bigger problem. The drayage drivers are going to start hauling regular freight because you're going to have drayage drivers who are going to start hauling spot freight. That's going to be a problem. If the strike isn't settled in the first couple of weeks, these ships are going to reroute to Mexico. They'll unload in the Canadian ports or the Mexican ports, in which case they will be brought to the United States by Canadian or Mexican drivers, and they will unload there.
Wait, poet. Wait.
They will be hauled by American truck drivers once in the U.S. So we're not going to see a huge change other than the fact that the load boards are going to be a freaking disaster for a brief period of time. But if the strike continues long term, they will figure out how to handle it. If the strike is short term, then what they're going to do, it'll just cause a backup, and we'll all see a whole bunch of extra loads when they start rolling. By the way, there are currently 38 ships off the coast.
38. I was wondering what that number was.
In 2 days.
Off the coast. That's by tonight at 9:00.
Yep. I'm gonna basically give this answer, and I'm gonna try to set you up as best I can, John. My whole thing is initially the effect won't be noticeable, but at some point, to Tom's credit, we will start noticing. All those specifics I don't have answers to. I'm nobody but a broadcaster. What do I know, right? But what I do know is this: right now, most distribution warehouses have a full stock of whatever they need, and they probably have enough to get by on for maybe a day or two. But once things stop coming out of the ports and they start running low on supplies, loads are going to be harder to fulfill, and things are going to get a little bit chaotic. I'm going to go one step further, though, and we're going to talk about the bigger picture, and that's what's at stake. All right?
And Canadians will not offload those ships that were supposed to go to the USA. Why? Because they're members of the same.
Okay. Maybe so, but that's a decision we'll see if that works out in the long run later on. The bigger picture I want you guys to think about is once you get cargo gridlock, you get the longer waits, you get the costs going up, and eventually people like us, we get left holding the bag. The ripple effect could rattle a large number of companies.
Yep.
So already there's talk about several companies considering closing their doors because of this strike. And all that tells me is that they weren't well enough prepared. But that's food for a different live show and a different argument. So where does that leave you, John? What did you gather from all that?
I feel like no one's taking this seriously enough, and I say that after all of you guys said what you said.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I say that is my father-in-law actually turned me on to this story about 2 weeks ago. So I've been trying to follow it and read up on it. And let's think about this for a second. Let's use Larry over there. Larry says, I haul chicken, domestic chicken. It won't affect me. Well, let's see. Can it affect domestic product? It's packaged in cardboard boxes, which are made here. But the solvents aren't.
I've said that.
Solvents aren't. Well, my point is, packaging for chickens. Yes, exactly. That's what I just said. Thank you, Midlife, for commenting what I just said. My point is, nobody is taking this seriously enough. If this strike goes on 2 to 3 weeks, it will strongly detrimentally hurt our country. You think it's bad economy-wise now, or 6 months ago, or a year ago, or even the pandemic time, this will pale that if the government doesn't step in and recognize this as a national security risk and stop this now. I don't want to scare everybody, but that's the truth.
What do you know about the comment below? Dylan Wilmore says they're also striking against human trafficking. What do you know about that? I haven't heard anything about that. It's the first I
Well, you shouldn't strike against that. You shouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't. Wait, are they striking against human trafficking, or are they against human trafficking?
Comment says they're striking against it. In other words, they're fighting it. Yeah. John,
I think everybody does. I don't know anybody that wants human trafficking unless you're one of the evil human traffickers. So you don't need to strike to do that.
Right? Exactly.
But I was actually pretty much agreeing with the majority of what you said there, John.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking catastrophic, and I know people are going to call me crazy, dingbat, whatever you want to call me. I'm talking about, I don't know, the end of our country as we know it, literally, in a month, if they don't do anything in a month. Midlife's busting over there. I know he is, but I'm serious.
Well, I'm scanning the comments and I'm looking. I mean, Leroy King makes a good point. Truckers can cripple the economy far worse than longshoremen. They're just better organized.
No, we can't.
No, well, I was going to partly agree, but partly disagree. The only difference the ILA has is that they can actually stop the flow of goods. We don't have enough of an organization or a union to do that. I mean, just because we don't take a load, does that mean the economy's yeah, to a small degree, but not to the effect that what we've got going on right now can.
To steal a line from somebody on this panel, you can have 100 truckers in a room, and I guarantee out of the 100 truckers, they're all going to have different opinions, which means 75% of them are still going to haul those loads, even if they're cheap freight, because they got to feed their families.
True.
So that's why that would never work in trucking. But these guys are actually closing it down, which is truly will affect everybody. Like Midlife would say, it's a terrorist act. Literally.
Another big reason why it would never work in trucking is there's too many big, huge corporate companies that run trucking out there, and they're not going to just close their doors because we're not happy.
That's actually an opposite argument to your point. The fact remains that there's still more than 85% of the market that's less than 10 trucks, carriers, less than 10 trucks. So therefore, we make up a larger majority, meaning the smaller companies. You can't tell me that these major corporations are that powerful. No, there's more numbers with the smaller guys.
It's the opposite. The smaller companies, the 10 truck carriers and less, cannot afford to strike. Because if
they can't afford it, but we're higher numbers.
Trucks. 60 days, they're out of business. So they can't afford to. A big company like JB Hunt, Schneider, these people, they can handle it. They can weather a storm. They could actually run freight at a loss for a couple of months because they're doing it right now. Warner is operating at 105% of revenue. Heartland Express is 112% of revenue. These are all companies losing money this year. They can afford it. The 10 truck carrier can't.
Yeah. Leroy says
100%.
fuel will go up. These companies will charge more for fuel to cover their bottom line. That starts at the refinery, I think. That's not something that's individual to a company, but
I got something on automation that'll make you think.
What's that?
Back years and years ago, you used to get into an elevator, and there was a person in that elevator sitting in a chair. And they took that elevator and they ran it up the floor you wanted to go to, and they brought it down. In a department store, they stopped at each floor and they said what floor you were on. We did away with that, and they went to automation. One of the biggest automations, and the only automation so far that's happened in any of these 14 ports that is making these people all pissed off, is they automated the exit gates at the port of Alabama. It is the only one so far that has had any automation on the East Coast. The West Coast has got completely automated ports. But on the East Coast, the Port of Alabama had a problem. Truck drivers could not get out these gates at the back quickly enough because they didn't have the longshoremen were busy doing other things. They couldn't get out. They automated it to where you drive up to the gate door goes up, and you drive out. That's the automation so far they're fighting. Now, there's other automation coming. But if your job can easily be replaced by automation, you're not worth $150,000 to $200,000 a year. Flat out.
Yep.
Can't say I disagree with that.
Yep. Another example of why globalism is a failure. If we went back to making our products here in the U.S., you wouldn't be worried about the strike.
Amen, TC Boggs. Amen.
Well,
I 100% agree with you.
It's a valid point. It's something I was thinking about while I was reading the article, but I didn't want to make it part of the conversation. But I do say we do need to make more stuff here, and we would be affected a lot less. I do agree with that.
You can thank the government for NAFTA.
Well, NAFTA only does Canada and the United States and Mexico.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Or U.S. What was that?
Yeah, but when they started that, they come up with the other stuff later.
North American Trade Agreement. North American Free Trade Agreement.
So if this continues and it goes on for a couple of months, what are we all going to do?
We're going to keep driving.
I got plenty of canned goods.
We're just going to be going, hey, guys, make sure you go and buy some bananas right now, because eat your bananas, because if you're east of the Mississippi, there's a good shot you're not going to have another banana until the strike's over, because bananas are the most perishable item, and all of them come in through the port of Baltimore.
Stealing my thunder from my video yesterday, aren't you?
Yep.
Wait, so there are no bananas that come up from Mexico?
They do. There are There are bananas that do not come from Mexico. They come from Long Beach, but that's a very small quantity of bananas and a different type of bananas than we get from the East Coast.
Huh.
All right.
Well, I guess I'll have to feed my monkey something different for a while.
Hey guys.
That's funny.
I'm out of here. Okay.
Oh, just like you to be a party pooper.
What?
I'm gonna get through a couple more. I'm gonna get through a couple more comments here.
Fine. I'll stick around. Okay.
DJ Vera says, if the United States is ever went back to making our own goods, we wouldn't have to worry and strike against anything. We'd have to sit here and lose everything off our shelves. Good point. I mean, I again, just to your earlier point, I've said we need to think a little less globally, more domestically. I'm not saying ignore the world, but when everything you get comes from China, that's a problem, figuratively speaking.
Or Taiwan.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Last thoughts, guys?
Well, you're still going to have an issue with exporting goods too, because we still export a lot of goods out of our ports.
Well, export's a problem too. Yeah.
That's correct. Our farmers are a little bit worried right now.
Yeah, that's going to get a big backlog in what we're doing too. What's your point, John?
I want to point out I'm going to highlight the comment if you don't mind here. This comment right here. This guy says that we have the power to demand more than 65 cents up to $1.50 a mile. And then he goes on to other things. That's a guy that doesn't understand how much it actually costs to operate a truck. And I don't mean to be mean, Leroy, I could be wrong here, but I don't think you understand how much it costs to operate a truck. Because if you did, you'd know that no company can pay you $1.50 a mile consistently.
And survive.
And the company make money also. Yes.
Larry.
Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Company pays me that.
I'm just a company driver.
You're going to milk that every chance you get, midlife.
I came out of the closet. I'm no longer a company driver. Ha ha.
There you go.
There you are.
He's going to milk it.
Closet now.
He's going to milk it though.
I think Larry had something to say.
Yeah, Larry had something to say.
Go ahead, Larry.
My company pays me $1.50 a mile, and they make more money than I do.
Wait. Your company pays you $1.50 a mile, but they also charge you for your truck. Their business model makes money off of you giving you a truck, not freight.
Right. No.
Yeah.
They don't.
And that's Canadian dollars, okay? Come on, Canadian dollars.
That's Canadian dollars.
Might as well be.
Let's try for a company driver.
I got one more thing to say.
Go ahead, Thumper.
Go ahead.
Find me a company that pays $1.50 a mile, and I'll be there.
I'm talking about company. He's talking about company drivers. You're an owner operator. Owner operators, yes, you can easily make $1.50 a mile. You can make $3 a mile. But the point is, if you're a company driver, there's no way you're making more. You're making $1.50 a mile.
Well,
I'm sorry. It's
here's
just
a
not
good
possible.
example. The company I work for, I make 60 cents a mile loaded, and I make 45 cents empty. So we want to run more miles loaded than we do empty, obviously.
You're getting robbed. With your experience, you should get paid more.
No, you think?
Go
Tell
ahead,
him that.
Go ahead and close us out, buddy.
Just everything we talked about today was actually a really good debate. We're going on an hour and a half, which is really surprising. We've had some good conversations here. But to the great Rubber Duck, we're gonna miss you, buddy. We got your loads covered. And another thing is too, we don't do it just for us and our family. We do it for you guys.
Amen to that. That is.
And truckers are people too.
Wonderful words indeed. Guys, we gladly come to you week after week with news you can use and a viewpoint to boot. Help us make a difference. Subscribe, like, and definitely look for us again on Saturday when we come back to you again at 7 p.m. Check out my World of Trucking for vlogs that do the same, only without the news. And make special tribute to Driving with John, Grumpy, Fate, Midlife, all the cast that joins me for every single show. Go look them up and surprise them with a like and subscribe as well. When you're on the road, guys, remember, it's the trucks that make the deliveries, but it's you that makes the difference. Week after week, it's our pleasure to do the job we do. Till next time, keep it real, keep the faith, and keep it rolling.